I'm talking to you. What y'all doing? Stephen A., are you serious, bro? Y'all showing y'all's true colors. Women are showing their true colors, and black folks are showing their true colors with a white girl that's just hooping, trying to live out her dreams.
A Catholic school board should not promote and
senior data reporter Harry Etten is with us. So where does the race stand among African American voters right now?
Yeah, I keep looking for this to change, to go back to a historical norm, and it simply put has not yet. So this is the margins are Biden and Trump among black voters compare where we were at this point in 2020 compare where we are now. You know, at this point, look at this. In 2020, Joe Biden was getting 86% of the African American vote. Look at where it is now. It's 70%. That's a 16-point drop, John. And more than that, it's not just that Joe Biden is losing ground, it's that Donald Trump is gaining ground. You go from 7%, single digits at this point in 2020, to now 21%. And again, John, I keep looking for signs that this is going to go back to normal, and I don't see it yet in the polling. If anything, right now we're careening towards historic performance for Republican presidential candidates, the likes of which we have not seen in 6 decades.
CNN is sounding the alarm. They're absolutely panicked over the fact that Donald Trump, that convicted felon J6 insurrectionist, is poised to win more of the black vote than any Republican in more than 60 years. It's absolutely incredible, and all the more delightful seeing this panic coming from the likes of CNN. We're going to take a look at the latest polls and see precisely why so many non-white voters are going Trump in 2024. You are not going to want to miss this. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you stay sane in these insane times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Also, did you see this headline in Forbes from last week? The Fed quietly admits gold is replacing the dollar. And this is because more and more nations around the world are starting to turn away from the dollar as the world's reserve currency. So it's no surprise that central banks around the world are ditching the dollar and gobbling up gold like never before. That's why the price of gold is expected to continue to climb, because when all is said and done, more and more nations are turning back to the timeless value of gold and silver. So that's why we have as one of our wonderful friends and sponsors, the amazing company Goldco, because they're patrons just like us who want to help you and guide you into how to get into precious metals completely tax-free and penalty-free. They're amazing, gang. In fact, if you click on that link below right now, you can get your very own absolutely free gold and silver kit. It's an amazing free resource that shows you step-by-step how to get into precious metals, even if your money's still in a retirement account like an IRA or 401k. And again, just to show you how awesome the patrons at Goldco are, the best part is that they actually already qualify to get up to $10,000 in free silver. I told you they're the best. What are you waiting for? Get in on the action by clicking on that link below, or go to turleytalkslightsgold.com and get your free gold and silver kit, gang. This is a life changer.
Dig into this number here. What is the makeup of that number?
This is where we get very interesting. So I decided to dive deeper into the crosstabs, figure out where is it that Joe Biden is truly struggling among black voters. All right, so this is black voters, Biden versus Trump margin. Look at black voters age 50 and older, and you'll see, look, Joe Biden was leading amongst this group at this point by 83 points back in 2020. Now it's 74 points. So yeah, a slight decline in that margin, but nothing out of this world. Look at black voters under the age of 50. Holy cow, folks, holy cow. Look at this. Joe Biden was up by 80 points among this group back at this point in 2020. Look at where that margin has careened down toward. It's now just, get this, 37 points. That lead has dropped by more than half, Mr. Berman. Oh, I just never seen anything like this. I'm like speechless, because you always look at history and you go, okay, this is a historic moment. If this polling is anywhere near correct, we're looking at a historic moment right now where black voters under the age of 50, which are historically such a big part of the Democratic coalition, are leaving it in droves.
I've never seen anything like this. You heard it, right? A historic moment, or my favorite, as you heard at the very, very beginning. We haven't seen anything like this in 6 decades. That's the alarm that CNN is
Ladies and gentlemen, there is a great saying, the left will eat their own. And that is exactly what is happening. There is full panic mode in Biden's head, in his administration, because the Democrats have given the go-ahead. We got to get rid of him and have someone else run against Trump. Because there's no way Biden can beat Trump. And we're about to get right into that. But before that, ladies and gentlemen, have you heard what Saudi Arabia announced? Starting at the end of this month, June, they will no longer take the dollar for their petrol, meaning our dollar is no longer backed by anything. They took it off the gold standard. Now, Saudi Arabia is refusing to renew the 50-year contract. They said they will now sell oil only using their currency, and they are joining the BRICS nations. BRICS has also said that before the end of this year, they will be publicly announcing a brand new super currency that the BRICS nations will use, and only use that currency for their trades. That is 70% of the world. China, India, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, Brazil, South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to get bad. So the only way to protect your hard-earned dollars is physical, tangible, constitutional, in your hands, gold and silver. And you can get free silver and qualifying orders when you contact Midas Gold Group and tell them Flag sent you. Go to MidasGoldGroup.com or call them at 480-360-3000. Again, free silver and qualifying orders when you tell them Flag sent you. Let's get right into this first piece of the news. A prominent liberal publication has predicted a landslide victory for President Donald Trump in the upcoming 2024 presidential election, placing him in a clear lead over Democrat opponent Joe Biden. The forecast stands that, notably, because it comes from a source typically seen as favoring liberal viewpoints. The economist model integrates a variety of data sources, including state and national polls and economic indicators. It generates its predictions by running over 10,000 simulations on elections, taking into account potential shifts in voter preference and economic trends. As of Monday, the model gives President Trump a 3/4 chance of securing the electoral college victory required to retain his position in the White House. So if that's when this was done a couple days ago, if the election were held that day, now again, this is a liberal, left-leaning pollster saying that Trump, 306 electoral votes, Joe Biden, 232 electoral votes. Now, let me show you another piece of information, ladies and gentlemen. Let's watch this. This is CNN.
Senior data reporter Harry Etten is with us. So where does the race stand among African American voters right now?
Yeah, I keep looking for this to change, to go back to a historical norm, and it's simple.
Look at that. At this time in 2020, among black voters, Biden was at 86 approval percent and Trump at 7. Today, just 4 years later, Biden is down to 70. Trump is up to 41.
But has not yet. So this is the margin, or Biden and Trump among black voters, here we were at this point in 2020, compare where we are now. You know, at this point, look at this. In 2020, Joe Biden was getting 86% of the African American vote. Look at where it is now. It's 70%. That's a 16-point drop, John. And more than that, it's not just that Joe Biden is losing ground, it's that Donald Trump is gaining ground.
You hear that? It's not that Joe Biden is losing ground, it's that Trump is gaining ground. Here's what I'm going to tell you. When you have liberal media coming out and saying things like that, like both of these pollsters did, you know somebody gave them the go-ahead to bash Biden. Alex Jones reported on this, and the whistleblower, undercover whistleblower that he has speaking to him is, the rumor is this: Joe Biden was given one last shot. They told him on the debate stage. You either destroy Trump at the first debate next week, I believe it's on the 27th, or you're out. You're done. You're finished. We're going to have to replace you. This is why CNN is trying to still help Joe Biden, and we see, the debate favors Biden the way it's structured. No audience, microphones go off as soon as his time is up, right? CNN are the ones coordinating it, running it. Come on. They might as well bring a robot out there. Or CNN should just debate on his behalf. Joe Biden doesn't even have to show up. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a very critical time in our country and the world. We need to stay prayed up. We need to keep fighting for truth, speaking truth to power. Make sure all your friends, your neighbors, your relatives protect our money, get gold and silver. I'm looking into it more and more and getting more and more myself, because it's, as Trump said on his last rally when he spoke about this, he said, if we don't stop this and get this, and we don't get this contract renewed, and they release a brand new super currency to go against the dollar, we are going to see inflation that the world has never seen before. Lord, help us. Subscribe, Trump 2024.
This is a brilliant story, as always. Some time ago, Bobby Kennedy told us that vaccines weren't even worthy of that name. When Bobby Kennedy's book about Anthony Fauci was the best-selling book in the country, the New York Times just had a blank space that day. Well, here's Bobby Kennedy post on the subject of vaccines and how we should actually bloody well even use the terms. Look, the ranks of the conspiracy theories now include the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which just ruled COVID-vax mandates unconstitutional because the vaccine does not stop transmission. And I'd like to add to that this was the period of public shaming.
Yeah.
They need to be called out and shamed,
Yeah.
brother.
Of condemnation, of carnivals, committed carnivals of celebration of those medications, a massive rebranding of Pfizer and Moderna, etc., from organisations that we understood were exploitative but were a necessary evil. We've got to put up with Big Pharma. Damn it, we need the diabetes meds. We'll put up with the opioid crisis and the fact that hundreds of thousands of people died because of what appeared to be, and according to our court settlements, strongly suggested are nefarious and irresponsible practices, the manipulation of physicians, all of that. Suddenly, we were invited to see Big Pharma as heroes. We granted them legal indemnity. We permitted them to keep their records shut. I mean, the whole thing was pretty crazy. He continues, does Bobby, I don't know, maybe it's the brainwork, but I seem to remember the experts and authorities are telling us otherwise. Rachel Walensky, our data from the CDC, suggests that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick. Biden said you won't get COVID if you get these vaccinations. My God, even me, a person who spends a lot of time in these spaces, it's still surprising to be reminded that Biden says you won't get COVID if you get these vaccinations. Anthony Fauci, we need people to take it to break the chain of transmission. You want to be a dead end to the virus. Wow, do you remember what he said when people start losing their freedoms, they'll drop their ideological bullshit? Rachel Maddow, now we know that the vaccine works well enough that the virus stops with every vaccinated person.
Now we know that the vaccines work well enough that the virus stops with every vaccinated person.
All of that was fake news. All of that was malinformation. All the time that those statements were being publicly conveyed and amplified, you were being censored if you had concerns. If you were a member of the vaccine hesitant, you were condemned. Well, let's look at this story in a little more depth, because it seems that, as is often the case, we were right. So in a contentious case involving the Health Freedom Defense Fund and other plaintiffs versus the Los Angeles Unified School District, the court acknowledged the plaintiffs' claim that the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines do not meet the traditional definition of vaccines because they do not prevent the spread of the virus, but only mitigate symptoms. That's what the campaign should have been, at most. This vaccine might mitigate symptoms. In some cases, it might cause myocarditis, pericarditis. It might cause sudden. I mean, there's a lot of things that it might do that we'll get into. The case revolved around LAUSD's or LAUSD's COVID-19 vaccination policy, which required all employees to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 by a specified deadline. The case, brought by the Health Freedom Defense Fund and several individuals, argues that LAUSD's vaccination mandate interferes with their fundamental right to refuse medical treatment. The plaintiffs assert that the mRNA COVID-19 vaccine merely mitigates symptoms rather than prevent infection or transmission, which they claim does not align with the traditional definition of vaccine. Do you remember how many words lost their meaning during that time? Do you remember how often you had to consider the writing of George Orwell? War means peace, peace means war, and tyranny means freedom. The court noted that the plaintiff's claims, taken as true at this stage, suggest that the COVID-19 vaccines do not effectively prevent the spread of COVID-19. This is the problem with independent media when it comes to the establishment's control. We can have
reported the plaintiff's claim, taken as true at this stage, suggests that COVID-19 vaccines do not effectively prevent the spread of COVID-19. The Gateway pundit previously reported that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, have modified the definition of vaccine to include the mRNA shot. Oh my God, it should always have been known as it should always been known as medicine. When Naomi Wolf reported on the impact on menstruating women, she was cancelled. Remember how Facebook happily censored true information?
Kind of establishment on that, asked for a bunch of things to be censored that in retrospect ended up being more debatable or true.
In order to comply with edicts that came right down from Fauci. Remember how they tried to control the theories around the emergence of this thing. We can't continue to bring you this beautiful content without the support of our partners. We all have crazy regrets in this life. It may be the acquisition of a crazy pet that's profligate of having too many kittens. I don't mean it's necessarily a cat. Or it could be a reckless and ridiculous tattoo. But do not have any further regrets when it comes to matters of nutrition, because Field of Greens could be the key to a good health future for you. It's not like any other green product out there where it's just watered down extracts. With Field of Greens you get an organic superfood, whole fruits and vegetables selected by not lunatics, not terrorists, not maniacs from the periphery, doctors, legit doctors that care about health, selecting vegetables and fruits to support your bodily functions, whether that's heart, liver, kidneys, your metabolism, or most importantly in my view, the immune system. That thing's got to be your own personal army protecting you from external invaders. Field of Greens is backed by a better health promise. You will notice your health improve, your vitality, your nails, your hair, your shimmering visage improve before your very eyes, because your eyes will improve as well. That's what the things I'm hoping. Or they're going to give you your money back. Get started by getting 15% off and free shipping by using my code. You use my code BRAND when you visit brickhouserussell.com. brickhouserussell.com. 2 S's, 2 L's. brickhouserussell.com, and use the promo code BRAND. You too could be fighting against time. You too could be preventing entropy and decay. You too could have glimmering organic systems shimmering with brickhouse goodness by using Field of Greens. So use the promo code BRAND at brickhouserussell.com. BRAND for 15% off and free shipping. Let's get back to the content. Let's have a look at British politician Nigel Farage, another, he would be termed a right-wing populist in our country. Let's have a look at him talking on the subject of these vaccines.
We were told, take the vaccine.
I'm still doing it. Don't call it a vaccine. It's very hard, isn't it, to unplug your head from this system.
Vaccine, the so-called vaccine, right? And you won't catch COVID. Take the vaccine and you won't pass COVID on. Both of those things were totally, completely untrue. We were told the vaccine was safe in every way. Frankly, it had not been through anything like the normal testing for any kind of vaccine in terms of trials. And now we learn that the so-called vaccine, children are pensioners now, elderly people on their 7th jab. That is not the kind of vaccine you and I grew up with, where you have a vaccine once and you're inoculated for life. So I do think there needs to be a massive investigation, not just into harms that were caused by the vaccine, and all vaccines cause side effects, and we know that, but there do seem to be an alarming number of people, young men in particular, who've developed myocarditis and other heart conditions. I'm not being conspiratorial about this, but let's have it out in the open. But I want to know as well why we were lied to. I want to know why they were trying to vaccinate kids at primary school age when COVID posed almost no threat to them whatsoever. And Boris Johnson and his government put in place an absolutely draconian system, not just of lockdowns, but of £500 million of taxpayers' money spent on newspaper wraparounds, on adverts. Remember, can you look into his eyes? If you don't take the vaccine, you'll kill your grandparents. It all turned out to be completely untrue. This needs a proper, full public inquiry.
Whether those inquiries and investigations will ever take place in your country or in mine, we're seeing inquiries that appear to be somewhat diluted and tempered, don't get into the nitty-gritty of big pharma power, the ability to lobby, the ability to donate and control, the incredible power that organisations like the WHO are able to exert
26% of the African American vote. Look at where it is now. It's 70%. That's a 16-point drop, John. And more than that, it's not just that Joe Biden is losing ground, it's that Donald Trump is gaining ground. You go from 7%, single digits at this point in 2020, to now 21%. And again, John, I keep looking for signs that this is going to go back to normal, and I don't see it yet in the polling. If anything, right now we're careening towards a historic performance for Republican presidential candidate, the likes of which we have not seen in 6 decades.
And when you dig into this number here, what is the makeup of that number?
This is where we get very interesting. So I decided to dive deeper into the crosstabs, figure out where is it that Joe Biden is truly struggling among black voters. All right, so this is black voters, Biden versus Trump margin. Look at black voters age 50 and older, and you'll see, look, Joe Biden was leading amongst this group at this point by 83 points back in 2020. Now it's 74 points. So yeah, a slight decline in that margin, but nothing out of this world. Look at black voters under the age of 50. Holy cow, folks, holy cow. Look at this. Joe Biden was up by 80 points among this group back at this point in 2020. Look at where that margin has careened down towards. It's now just, get this, 37 points. That lead has dropped by more than half, Mr. Berman. I just never seen anything like this. I'm like speechless, because you always look at history and you go, okay, this is a historic moment. If this polling is anywhere near correct, we are looking at a historic moment right now where black voters under the age of 50, which have historically been such a big part of the Democratic coalition, are leaving it in droves.
Some of the chat says that's racist.
It absolutely is. It's neo-racism to tell people that they should believe something if they're
So that's why the White House is in full panic mode. That, among other reasons, trying to censor videos of the president wandering off stage, wandering around fields, falling asleep during world meetings. It's a disaster, absolute disaster. Here is a Biden team calling for social media disinformation censorship after the G7 mishap. Now, many of you may have seen this, where he sort of meanders around in the field there, and Georgia Maloney has to like come over and corral him back in. Look at the New York Post headline today: "Meander in Chief. Biden embarrasses U.S. with confused wanderings at the World Conference." And this wasn't just the only one; it was multiple. And so here was that moment where he just wanders off as these parachutists circling down. Watch.
Also last night, Paul came over with President Biden, where he was looking very doddery. He was wandering around. He sort of wandered off, and George Maloney, the Italian premier, had to sort of guide him back to the crowd. It was quite painful viewing. Everyone's putting a slight brave face on it this morning. We've got some more for the paper tomorrow, but yeah, you can see from that footage yourself. It's this is getting embarrassing now. You do really wonder how President Biden is going to be able to run an election campaign in October and November for re-election. And if he won, is that a man he really thinks to get through the next 4 years?
The answer is no, he won't, and that's what we're going to get to here in a second. Now, the Biden campaign spokeswoman says these videos are disinformation. So, that's fake news, what you just saw there. Him just wandering around. It was him. He was really captivated by something. It's not.
Well, what they're explaining is you see him looking at another parachuter, and all the other world leaders are looking at the one who's just landed in front of them. So he's kind of like, well, that was cool too, like a child, not sure where everyone is supposed to be putting their attention. So you can see it was kind of Georgia Maloney to go and guide him, clearly. But
and also, it's technically misinformation because we don't have all the facts. We didn't see what he was looking at. Disinformation is if you've seen the facts, you know them, and you're outright saying that's not true.
Right.
This is misinformation because we don't know. We don't know exactly what he was looking at.
it almost doesn't matter. They had
Right.
planned that all the world leaders were going to interact with this thing, and Biden doesn't understand the plan. That's just, doesn't matter what he actually was looking at, even if there was something interesting somewhere else.
So this is what their campaign is saying, that these things are, disinformation. But how can you hide this from Saturday night, where President Obama has to literally leave Biden on the stage because he doesn't know where to go? And this one went viral in the past few hours. Watch. They are saying goodbye. Obama walking off. There we go. That's good. He stands there. The White House says, and there's Jimmy
social media platforms where a lot of Americans are getting their information to point it out as well.
Yeah, so you guys have to do your part. You guys have to fight disinformation. So when you see President Biden wandering off, you need to go on social media and say, he's not wandering off. He just saw a rabbit jump into the forest.
No, that's exactly what I saw.
President Biden will be replaced on the Democratic ticket. We now have confirmation from a member of Congress and an exclusive report from the Daily Mail confirming this news. Biden will be replaced very soon. We're going to get into those details here in a second. But first, the White House in full panic mode, and here's why. Watch.
CNN's senior data reporter Harry Etten is with us. So where does the race stand among African American voters right now?
Yeah, I keep looking for this to change, to go back to a historical norm, and it simply put has not yet. So this is the margin, or Biden and Trump among black voters, compare where we were at this point in 2020, compare where we are now. You know, at this point, look at this. In 2020, Joe Biden was getting 86% of the African American vote. Look at where it is now. It's 70%. That's a 16-point drop, John. And more than that, it's not just that Joe Biden is losing ground, it's that Donald Trump is gaining ground. You go from 7%, single digits at this point in 2020, to now 21%. And again, John, I keep looking for signs that this is going to go back to normal, and I don't see it yet in the polling. If anything, right now we're careening towards a historic performance for Republican presidential candidate, the likes of which we have not seen in 6 decades.
And when you dig into this number here, what is the makeup of that number?
This is where we get very interesting. So I decided to dive deeper into the crosstabs, figure out where is it that Joe Biden is truly struggling among black voters. All right, so this is black voters, Biden versus Trump margin. Look at black voters age 50 and older, and you'll see, look, Joe Biden was leading amongst this group at this point by 83 points back in 2020. Now it's 74 points. So yeah, a slight decline in that margin, but nothing out of this world. Look at black voters under the age of 50. Holy cow, folks. Holy cow. Look at this. Joe Biden was up by 80 points among this group back at this point in 2020. Look at where that margin has careened down towards. It's now just, get this, 37 points. That lead has dropped by more than half, Mr. Berman. I just never seen anything like this. I'm like speechless, because you always look at history and you go, okay, this is a historic moment. If this polling is anywhere near correct, we are looking at a historic moment right now where black voters under the age of 50, which have historically been such a big part of the Democratic coalition, are leaving it in droves.
Someone in the chat says that's racist.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
It's neo-racism to tell people that they should believe something because of the color of their skin.
So that's why the White House is in full panic mode. That, among other reasons, trying to censor videos of the president wandering off stage, wandering around fields, falling asleep during world meetings. It's a disaster, absolutely disaster. Here is Biden team calling for social media disinformation censorship after the G7 mishap. Now, many of you may have seen this, where he sort of meanders around in the field there, and Georgia Maloney has to come over and corral him back in. Look at the New York Post headline today: "Meander in Chief. Biden embarrasses U.S. with confused wanderings at the World Conference." And this wasn't just the only one; it was multiple. And so here was that moment where he just wanders off as these parachutists are coming down. Watch.
Also last night, awkward moment with President Biden, where he was looking very doddery. He was wandering around. He sort of wandered off, and Georgia Maloney, the Italian premier, had to sort of guide him back to the crowd. It was quite painful viewing. Everyone's putting a slight brave face on it this morning. We've got some more out for the paper tomorrow, but yeah, you can see from that footage yourself. It's this is getting embarrassing now. You do really wonder how President Biden is going to be able to run an election campaign in October and November for re-election, and if he won, is that a man you really think is going to get through the next 4 years?
The answer is no, he won't, and that's what we're going to get to here in a second. Now, the Biden campaign spokeswoman says these videos are disinformation. So, that's fake news. What you just saw, him wandering around, it was him. He was really captivated by something. It's not.
Well, what they're explaining is you see him looking at another parachuter, and all the other world leaders are looking at the one who's just landed in front of them. So he's kind of like, well, that was cool too, like a child, not sure where everyone is supposed to be putting their attention. So you could see it was kind of Georgia Maloney to
disinformation because we don't know. We don't know exactly what he was looking at.
It almost doesn't matter. Like, they had
Right.
planned that all the world leaders were going to interact with this thing, and Biden doesn't understand the plan. That's just, doesn't matter what he actually was looking at, even if there was something interesting somewhere else.
So this is what their campaign is saying, that these things are, disinformation, misinformation. But how can you hide this from Saturday night, where President Obama has to literally leave Biden off the stage because he doesn't know where to go? And this one went viral over the past few hours. Watch. They are saying goodbye. Obama walking off. There we go. Let's go. He stands there. The White House. And there's Jimmy Kimmel. Let's go. Let's pull you off. Mr. President.
Oh, he's been standing there too.
And just look at the two. Like, okay. You off. Well, gingerly. You just follow
This is fine.
Follow the red arrow on the floor. See
Just
that
like
red
old
arrow?
times, Joe.
And just look at his hands when he walks now. He like keeps them perfectly like straight down and does. And I saw a doctor saying that that's a sign of mental stuff. But he's like this, and he kind of does this now. When he used to be like all animated and everything.
Yeah.
Definitely want to go to a doctor that says mental stuff.
What do you have, doctor?
You have some mental stuff. Mental stuff, doctor. This video was just leaked, though, so now we know that was the end of it. Now we see this. The video just leaked showing Biden because someone filmed it inside. I guess he wasn't really allowed to use phone cameras or whatever. This is Biden stumbling over his words. This is such an embarrassing moment here. So Obama's just like looking on as President Biden. I don't even know what the hell he's talking about. Watch.
But guess what? It's growing. The economy's growing. People's doing better. We have the highest unemployment, the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. We have more people, over 15 million people ready to hire when they go to the workforce. My son says we all have, various short-term descriptions for their jobs. And what you accomplish. You should say Joe Jobs.
So Adrian.
That was the punchline.
Yeah, I guess.
That was the punchline.
That was the punchline of the joke. Adrian Elrod from the Biden campaign explained how this is disinformation. So she went on MSNBC to say, it's like all these videos you're seeing of the president wandering around, stumbling over his words, can't put a sentence together in the private meetings that are people. It's all just, don't worry, it's all just fake news.
Disinformation is alive and well. We have to use surrogates and voices across the country to combat this and make it clear that not only do we not play this game, but to your point, President Biden was out there literally representing America at the G7, saluting our troops, doing what he does as President of the United States. And look, we're going to see more of this. I mean, this is just the reality of campaigning in 2024. So we have to combat that disinformation. We have to hit it hard when it happens and make it clear that these are dirty tactics that MAGA Republicans are using because they can't run on the issues, Lemire. They have to use these dirty tactics like this because they are not right with Americans on the issues. So we're going to see more of this. We're going to do what we can to combat it. But it does take the voices of surrogates across the country. It does take the media to call it out. It does take social media platforms where a lot of Americans are getting their information to point it out as well.
Yeah, so you guys have to do your part. You guys have to fight disinformation. So when you see President Biden wandering off, you need to go on social media and say, he's not wandering off. He just saw a rabbit jump into the forest.
No, that's exactly what I saw liberals doing just today, saying this did not happen. That's all. Like, here's the video, and it did not happen. I've seen it. In fact, Colin Rugg, I think is his last name, has a great summary of all of the people who said exactly that. That's gaslighting.
So they're following. They've marshaled their bots. The Biden administration has marshaled their team of liberal social media people to go out there and just basically say, as a surrogate, she's like, we need to get our surrogates. And she says the media, MSNBC, you're doing a great job here. You're fighting this, MSNBC. You've got to push this out there.
She says this is the reality of running for election. What she's missing there is if you're senile.
Right.
Yes, that is the reality.
And I was going to point out, it's the media and Mark Hamill.
Right. You need Mark Hamill and Jack Black apparently. Over
Yeah,
the
they're
past 20
both great
over the past-
surrogates.
God.
Well, those at the G7. Now, this is the important thing, right? So you can have these videos of him wandering around a field, and you can try to combat that disinformation. But it was those that were at the G7 who are interacting with the president. These are officials, and she's labeling it disinformation. But officials who were there know better. Listen.
What was going on? I mean, obviously, most G7 summits, diplomatic sprints, you expect to see the President of the United States, as other world leaders, doing a flurry of meetings. Has he been doing the same thing?
No, he ducked out for dinner last night, and frankly, Jack, I'm gonna ruin my story for the paper tomorrow by telling it to never mind the balance. But my sources, diplomatic sources here, people I've been speaking to, say it's the worst they've ever seen Joe Biden. And he's in a bad way, and he's losing focus in meetings. But sometimes he's very sharp, sometimes he's very much not. So some worrying developments there, and an exclusive news story to never mind about it.
Yeah. So, yeah, the people that were in private meetings. So I'd love to see how they want to spin that as disinformation. Private meetings with officials who were saying and going on the record to the newspaper saying this is the worst they've ever seen. Like he's just like losing the key to have a conversation with the guy.
Well, and
it's totally
what demented me, it's like John Pierre. She'll always make excuses. Oh, he runs circles around us. He's as sharp as a tack. And it's like they'll just say, well, he was just tired. He was on a flight. They just make excuses for this. But it's like it's disgusting that they're parading this man who obviously has something wrong. I said mental issues. I meant to say dementia, but I wasn't sure if it was Alzheimer's or dementia, so I didn't want to say definitively. But they're just parading this guy around and it's disgusting.
Yeah. And especially when you remember how much the media loved talking about removing Trump for competency towards the end of his presidency. And that was the story. The story now is them working equally as hard, saying he's really fine, what you see. And so nobody has spoken in the liberal media about removing him for competency the way that was the story around the end of the Trump administration.
Well, we now have confirmation that yes, President Biden will be replaced on the Democratic ticket before the November election. Congresswoman Luna confirmed to Fox News that this was the case.
That's currently what's coming out of the White House, that, a lot of people realize that Joe Biden's likely not going to be the nominee, which is, from what we're hearing on Capitol Hill, Jesse, Representative Kiley had reported that Kamala Harris actually eyeing a run for California governor because of it.
Right, that's the backup plan. So you are hearing also in D.C. that Joe Biden isn't going to be the Democrat nominee?
Correct. It appears that our colleagues are trying to put guardrails on a 2024 presidential election with President Trump.
So that's unbelievable. And then on the heels of that, the Daily Mail, just about 4 hours ago, reporting that yes, this is going to happen, that Biden will be replaced on the ticket, and how Hillary Clinton, Obama, Pelosi, and Schumer are coming together and will topple the aging president when they do it. This is the plan that's been worked on.
So that's the group of Democratic kingmakers.
Exactly.
It's Pelosi, the Clintons, and Chuck Schumer.
And President Obama.
And Obama.
So the Daily Mail
They decide, guys, not us. Not the electorate.
So the Daily Mail has revealed that if Joe loses in the first debate with Trump, or if his polling numbers keep falling like they have, it'll take a united front of liberal grandees to make Joe basically throw in the towel, according to the reports. The only people who would force him out would be Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer, according to the Daily Mail. It would have to be one of the four of them collectively. Mrs. Obama, who has no close personal feelings for the Bidens, according to one well-connected Democratic source, flat out ignored the invitation, will not be involved in it.
What?
Strategists theorize, according to the Daily Mail, that Democrats would have to hold a public event to symbolically transfer power from Biden to a new candidate. Absolutely, this would be the case. Handing over the baton, basically. And arguably, I think this is really interesting. Nate Silver over at the 538 noted that Biden's average approval rating has reached a new low of 37.4%. And the number one concern among voters is his age, which Silver said was an extremely understandable concern, as Biden acts and looks his age is a huge outlier to ask for the job until he's 86 years old. That's a huge polling factor in this. But here's, I think, the really interesting piece of this is that Atlantic columnist Mark Leibovich basically says and cruelly sort of stamped the president as Ruth Bader Biden, and basically saying that that's a reference, of course, to the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who angered a lot of liberals while Obama was president and didn't step down so that he could replace her. What they're saying is that this is his moment to not pull a Ruth Bader Ginsburg, that Biden should step down for the good of the party, hand it over to Gavin Newsom, and allow Kamala Harris then to take over. She'll run for governor of California. And this will be the move that, according to the Daily Mail and according to Congressman Luna and other Democratic strategists and sources,
why wouldn't
they would do
she
this.
step up to run for the presidency? Because they realize that she's so unpopular.
She's so unpopular and totally incompetent. But you can, as we know by being governor of California, you can be incredibly incompetent in California.
Yeah.
And
could you imagine having to sit through one of her State of the Union?
Oh my God. Well,
like this word salad, like.
That would actually be better because it's scripted, so she'll just read off the teleprompter. It's when she speaks extemporaneously that's almost as bad as President Biden. So, again, President or Gavin Newsom, so Politico has this piece, of course, on Kamala for governor. They have a whole big piece about, yes, she should be the governor of California. See all these pieces coming together for the liberal media right now?
I see it.
You see it?
I see what you're laying out for me, my darling.
And then Gavin Newsom wants nothing more, of course, as we pointed out here, than to be president of the United States. He's been saying all of the right things. He's been praising Joe Biden, not insulting him one iota. Here he was on Alex Wagner. We showed you this, but this is like one of the most disgusting displays of sycophantic behavior. Watch.
Who in their mind would want to run when you have someone of such esteem as our incumbent president of the United States, with a record of accomplishments and a man of character, a man of decency? I'm old school. Talk about loyalty. I'll go to the ends of the earth for this guy. I really would.
Yeah, sure you would. Because you're about to become the Democratic nominee, Gavin Newsom. So there you guys go.
Republicans in California have been warning about this for a long time, that he is running a shadow candidacy for the president, and they've been watching him and trying to warn us. So for Californians, this may not be a new revelation, but for the rest of us, we're like, what? We have to, all right, here we go. All right, well, why does Maine want people to stay on drugs? They specifically want people to die, it seems, by this new taxpayer-funded program. Here's another example of the state handing out drugs without noticing that drug decriminalization and promoting drugs does not help. In fact, it just makes people die faster. But then as they do that, they pat themselves on the back saying, we're so compassionate. Okay, so this is how compassionate the state of Maine is. They're handing out boofing kits to fentanyl addicts. Boofing is when you shoot drugs up your butthole. I said it. I'm not going to say it again. I'm sorry. I warned you. That's what it is. Yeah. We're not doing it. We're not going to show you how to do it. We're telling you that Maine will teach you how to. No, not today, honey.
No, Maine will teach you, and they'll hand you a pamphlet on how to do it. That, and taxpayers will pay for it.
I will show you the pamphlet in just a second. So I warned you, if you're eating something, just set that aside until the next one, because this is on the taxpayers, and I'm going to tell you why the heck someone would do this. So, okay, bufa means fart in Portuguese. What? Why'd you give me that look?
Okay, because that's gross.
Yeah, and so boofing, I don't know if that is related or all. It's a weird word. I don't like it, but now you know how the kids.
What's weird is we use that word when we were young, like kids in school.
Boofa?
That was a word. Yeah, no boofing.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Okay. All right.
All right, let's not go there. So this is from Maine Access Point. It's a taxpayer-funded program that's part of the Maine Recovery Council, and this is real. This is part of the handout that goes with a boofing kit, and here's the actual taxpayers made this, guys. Like, image of the butt and the syringe. And literally, look at the try boofing exclamation point. This is, if you really want to know, then you can screenshot this and look later, and here's the last bit of this. So not only have they done this super catchy, like Saved by the Bell looking flyer, but also they have this info video telling people exactly why somebody should boof. I don't know if you use it that way, but here's how they explain it.
So what boofing is inserting drugs into your rectum And one of the main reasons people do it is because there's a lot of blood vessels in your rectum and a lot of surface area. I always recommend people try boofing because switching to snorting can be a little too big of a jump.
I love that because I think also that helps with our minds. So if you're having a really hard time, hitting, and it's really starting to you're getting in your head about it and you're starting to get frustrated, just knowing that you do have an option of boofing or booty bumping is I don't know, I think maybe it brings a little bit more ease, right? You're like, okay, I'm getting really frustrated. This is really it's not working. Okay, I have this other option too.
And then if you want to inject later because you really enjoy the rush from injecting, that's fine. But getting yourself well first can really just take some of that frustration off.
Yeah. She always recommends
I have so many redacted t-shirt ideas right now.
I love that she says she always recommends.
Always.
Like when she's out at a Starbucks or she's out to dinner. She's like, hey friends, I know we haven't been talking about this for a while, but I always recommend boofing.
Yeah.
I always recommend that.
I mean, you gotta think.
Have you ever boofed your Starbucks?
No. You gotta think that, this is a very demoralizing thing to advocate for people when you're actually trying to get them better. And you're like, this is how I'm gonna get you better. You wasted all your veins in your arm and you don't want to sniff because that's, she said, too big of a jump. This is okay. The nose is a bridge too far, but this is not. I'm so confused. Now,
Maine wants to become the new liberal capital of the country or something. Hey, forget Portland, forget all the drugs shooting up in San Francisco, move to Maine.
Yeah.
Maybe
Okay.
you'll meet people like that.
Now, they do this because they think that if they don't, the users will do dangerous things in order to get the drugs anyway. So they don't believe that there's any way to really get them to stop. They think they need to just continue to give them this drip in a safe way. But is this preserving human dignity? I want to remind you of this clip from, it's not a clip, a bit from Michael Schellenberger's great book, San Francisco. And one person, I thought this was an addict who said this to his mom. Her name's Jackie Berlin. And she said that her son really liked Disney's Pinocchio when he was a kid. And he feels like when he is in San Francisco or other liberal places that give out all these drugs, that he is on the island, Pleasure Island. He says on one side of the street, there are people giving you food and clean needles. On the other side of the street are all the drug dealers. It's like getting all the candy and treats that you think you want, you think you're having fun, but little by little it's taking away your humanity and turning you into something you were never meant to be. Like how the kids start turning into donkeys in Pinocchio and then end up trapped and in cages. So this is an addict giving what I think is a very brilliant analogy. Oh my God, I thought I wanted this. How did I get here? And all of a sudden I'm this. And in fact, we spoke to this mother about a year ago, and here's what she said about these programs where you're giving out drugs and giving access to drugs to addicts.
So right now, there's a big push to open safe consumption sites, is what they call them.
Yeah.
And that's not a good place to put our resources. I'm asking for the resources to be put into more treatment and rehabilitation. There's about 2,500 homeless people on the streets in San Francisco, most of them because of drug addiction or mental illness. And we only have 37 detox beds in the entire city.
Okay, she's quite right. So what I'm pointing out here is that liberal cities have no desire to rehabilitate drug addicts. They just continue to push it on them. And when you talk about, well, let's rehab them, let's give them consequences for not testing clean, what the people who are responsible for the homeless industrial complex say is, oh no, that's racist. We want body autonomy. They should be able to do whatever they want. And in fact, giving people drugs is called MAT, medically assisted treatment, and there's no standard for it. So when you get an antibiotic, they take your height and weight and your age, and then they know how much to give you. That is not the case with MAT. Most providers are kind of going off what they think because there's no professional standard. And a lot of times that goes very wrong. This is according to the book Dope Sick, which later became a series, which was great work by this journalist, Beth Macy. And she said that Overprescribing among doctors specializing in addiction treatment is rampant, according to several rural MAT patients that she spoke to, who unpacked how Suboxone doctors prescribed them twice as much of the drug they needed, fully knowing that they would sell some on the black market so that they could afford to return for their next visit. Others traded in their drugs for illicit heroin or pills. So this is when you're giving people these drugs, they go off and sell them a lot of times, and it's not making anything better. This book was written in 2018, so we've known this since, but we keep doing this. Oregon practices MAT and recently decriminalized drugs as well, and data has shown that that only helped accelerate drug deaths. So look at the number of overdose deaths. Now, we can attribute some of that to the pandemic, but also, again, these policies that are pushing drugs even more. And again, the only thing that's known to help people on drugs is a trifecta of treatment coupled with weaning them off drugs and not consistent access to drugs. So it has to be therapists, law enforcement, and experts, which is exactly what they found in DopeSick, that the drug courts now remain the country's only model for preventing recidivism and relapse. So it's basically, again, the drug courts, and they have to test clean. And when they actually require that, people graduate these programs, and graduates are roughly half to a third less likely to return to crime or drugs than regular probationers, because you have expectations. You have to stay clean, and then you give them something to